Yeah.
Going well.
How's it
It's
going with
going
you?
really, really well. I'm excited for today's combo. That's my excited dance. See?
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to just like welcome everybody joining us now and just say that we're going to be hitting on a few different subject matters today. Mark's going to be asking me some of your questions and some of his questions, and we're going to be talking a little bit about like the mind and how we can end up getting trapped into places like with the mind. We're going to be talking about being authentic. We're going to be talking about diet and protein and like what to eat, and in this bizarre age of miscommunication and misinformation, like what's really good for our bodies and how can we discern that. We're going to be answering some of your questions, and we're going to be talking about daily activity and really overall how you can live your best life. So
I want you
that's a little
to
summary of
notice
what's
something.
coming
I
up.
want you to
But
notice something about today's
yeah.
conversation rather than last time's. I don't have dishwasher fluid
Uh-huh.
for my drink. Yeah.
So
I
something's
listened. I
changed.
listened last time and I decided, well, I'm not
What are you
drinking anything,
drinking this
but
time?
if I were to be drinking something right now, it'd be water because I've been drinking a ton of water.
Okay,
So
great.
that's very thankful to
Grand.
you. I got to tell you, so let's start going here because, and where I want to start is the mind, because I think so many times, when I lost 110 pounds, as you know, or in your terms, like, I don't know, what is that, like 3 stones?
Well, it's 2.02, so like
Well,
that's about 40
yeah.
kilos. That's
So
pretty, I mean 40, 45
when I
kilos.
lost the weight, people told me all the time, Mark, it's not healthy. Mark, it's this. Mark, it's that. And you could tell me anything you wanted to tell me, but until I made the decision in my own mind, until I got to that place, it wasn't going to happen. And so I want to talk. I want to talk a little bit. If you have any advice, if you have anything that speaks to someone being able to have a moment of going, okay, this is how you get your mind right. Does that make sense? How would you, if someone like me were 110 pounds overweight, 5 pounds overweight, whatever, and they said, gosh, I really want to lose weight, how would you make sure that their mind was ready for that type of journey?
I mean, one of the best moments really when that kind of situation happens is actually, it's effectively like an awakening or something which is deep within us, which is going like, we need radical change like in our life. And that comes from a very deep and core place within us to be like, I need to change. And it kind of basically, even if we don't get to that point, like we're kind of almost like not there yet in order to change. So you reach the point where you're like, I remember you saying like you were in hospital and you had overheard a doctor saying, like you're probably not going to be around that much longer, right? And so that kind of like is a place where we kind of really get inspired for change. And then really the mind, we can make our best friend or our worst enemy. And the mind is constantly trying to protect us. That's the thing that's always really fundamental. Like we've got to remember that. We can get so lost in this cloud of like negativity or overthinking or overthoughts. But the mind, in its own belief, thinks that it's always doing the best for us. And so quite often when we start bringing change into our life, it's going to be like, uh-oh, this doesn't feel good, like, because we're wanting to change it. And essentially that's the mind trying to keep us safe, trying to keep us protected. But we have this thing called the reticular activating system, like within our mind. And it starts basically looking for evidence for the current beliefs that we have. And so once we start choosing new beliefs or we start looking for different situations, it's kind of a bit like if you put your house up for sale, you start seeing for sale signs everywhere. But if you start going, okay, I want to like change my life, we're going to start triggering the brain, start looking for like the mind to start looking for those different opportunities. And really we start doing that by asking different questions. So we go, what would my life be like if I lost this weight? What what could my life be like? And the mind actually starts then working like with us in terms of our goal. And we start asking questions like, what does a healthy person look like? What does a healthy person behave like? What does a person who has less weight than I do behave like? Do they go to the gym? Do they go and walk more regularly? But once we start asking the questions, the mind will start sort of working in our favor to be able to take those back, to take the power back into making new decisions. Because the mind can be so perpetually controlling, but it also can be so useful in problem solving because it's always just trying to problem solve. So when we start asking new questions, we start getting new answers. And by the time you're 35, pretty much all the sort of like neural pathways and beliefs and brain patterns and systems are kind of in place and they're pretty hardwired. And so one of the best times that we can create a new perspective of change is actually starting to meditate. So if somebody's starting to look at changing their life quite radically, I'd be like, first of all, I'd be like, start meditating because it's super, super like,
Yeah.
oh, amazing for becoming aware of actually what is going on in our head. And then from that as well, we can start even like journaling down, like saying, what kind of questions, what kind of a person do I want to be? And then what kind of like questions does that person ask? Then we start literally working with the mind to help us
And
move
so
in
what
the
I'm hearing
direction
you
we
say,
want to
which
go.
I love, is like, number one, the power of the word, right? Like there is so much power in the word. Like, and the reality is if
Mm-hmm.
you say something enough times to yourself, you're actually going to start believing it. So if you could say enough times to yourself,
Mm-hmm.
I want to be healthy, I want to do this, I want to do, and you start like almost focusing on the positive, right? Like, because I think when I was losing weight, people were saying to me all the time, like, it's the hardest thing you're ever going to do. I didn't want to do the hardest thing I was ever going to do. But when I changed my mind and changed my
Mm-hmm.
words to, I am going to feel better than I've ever felt. I'm going to look better than I've ever looked. I'm going to be able to be healthier than I've ever been. And I changed my words to be words that were positive and words that helped me kind of go, aha, I get it now, right? Like that's when big things changed for me, right? Like, and I think there is
Mm-hmm.
such power in the word. And what you're saying is like, even through meditation, like your meditation could literally be you sitting there, even for 5 minutes, going, I'm going to be healthier. I'm going to be better. I'm going to be this. Like, and just make it a positive experience instead of a crappy experience, right? Like no one's going to be like, oh, I'm so excited about doing the hardest thing I've ever done in my whole life. No one's going to do that, and it's like, as you're like, and not that I've ever had a baby, by the way, I want you to know I've never had a child, but every time you talk to a mother who has had a baby, you're like, was it painful? And they're like, well, yes, I guess I remember it was painful, but I don't really remember it because of the joy that I have now with my child, right? Like I would do it a million
Totally.
times over, no matter, even though it's the worst pain you could ever imagine, I would do it a million times over because of the joy I have from it. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like as you're going through this, as you're going through anything, right? Whether it's addiction, whether it is whatever it is, right? I mean, we're talking about health and wellness, but when you change your words to be words that are positive about the journey you're about to embark on, it's amazing what can come to be with that. And
Yeah, and the greatest like form of suffering can actually lead to our greatest ever liberation. That's the thing. And like when we attach, like when the mind like attaches to whatever it might be, that causes suffering. And until we surrender to whatever we've chosen to do and go like, look, I've decided and I accept this. But like every time we attach and there's like a hook, then there's always just like, oh, there's gonna be like more suffering. Oh, there's gonna be more suffering. But actually, we start reprogramming the mind to go like, what if this experience was the best thing that I ever did? What if this was the greatest liberation it ever was? And I think that really, your expression around that and like how your life profoundly changed as a result of those decisions, it goes
well, and
kind of goes
listen,
without saying now,
and
right?
I am not a doctor. Neither of us are doctors. We're not here to give medical advice. But I will guarantee this: that getting healthy will never be a bad thing in your life. It just won't. And being overweight, there's so many problems with being overweight. There's just health problems left and right. And the reality is, I promise that even if you're not overweight, or even if you don't have medical issues, I promise that the healthier you get, the smarter, the better, the greater you will feel. And if you can focus on that, then your mind will start kind of rewiring itself, I would imagine, to doing bigger, greater things than you could have ever imagined, right?
Totally.
Well, let me ask you this then, because like one of the things that you and I joke about when we're talking just privately is I'm always like, okay, you've got 154 abs, and how is it possible to have, I mean, because you have an amazing body, but at the same time, you are also living a really happy life. And I don't see how that's possible. I don't see how you can look like you look and be happy. Talk to me and talk to everyone about kind of the balance and how that balance does make you happy, number one, but also allows you to look the way you look.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's several things there. There can be great suffering involved in going after a particular aesthetic, and that is also something which I have experienced. But it's really about kind of like creating the most joyful experience for you. Like what I speak with people a lot about actually is that, in the end, it's never about the six pack. It's never about like whatever it might be in the end. It's never about the thing that we're after. It's actually about the feeling of what we want. So we can kind of go after a particular experience because we believe that it's going to be like the answer to all of our misery. And so we're like, well, I finally see every single one of my muscles. Like, I'll be like, amen, everything's great. But like, it's kind of actually, we need to fall in love with the process of it. And so when it comes to building a healthier body, having a six pack or getting into like really great shape. I mean, having a six pack specifically can be a pretty miserable journey for a lot of people because biologically it's actually very difficult for a lot of people. And like, I certainly don't look like that all the time. There's better days and worse days and better months and worse months. And I say worse more in the sense of kind of like in terms of a sustainable and healthy ability to feel on our body. And so for me, it's been about changing a lifestyle. And so that my lifestyle is as much as possible in alignment with that. Like, as in, I choose to eat food which I enjoy. And that's always really the most important thing, really, when it comes to sustainability is actually, can we keep this up? Can we continue to keep this up? And what changes can we bring in to our daily eating habits, for example, which feel better? The thing that's kind of interesting is that actually when we massively remove the amount of junk or processed food in the body literally stops craving it. And so what I like speak a lot with people about is about bringing our body back and back and back into greater levels of coherence by removing like all of that stuff. And when we start removing like the trans fats and the basically like highly fried or the highly like processed foods, because the body loves it because it's so efficient initially, but then when the inflammation starts and when the weight kind of like goes on, then obviously like we see the downside of that. So what I do is I'm pretty consistent on getting exercise through my week. It may not always be going to the gym, and sometimes I don't actually want to go to the gym, and it will be like doing other things, and it kind of comes in peaks and waves. And sometimes I'm like, okay, I've done 4 sessions or maybe even 5 sessions in the gym in a week. Other weeks I may do like 1, maybe 2, and then go and do some other kind of activity which I really love. Like, I love swimming. I went swimming the other day for an hour, and I got like some notification on my watch, which was like, "This is the longest swim you've ever done." I was just like, "Wow, cool," and that was really gratifying for me. But it didn't feel like I swam for an hour. I looked at my watch after the first like 27 minutes, and I was just like, "Whoa! Like, where did that 27 minutes like even go?" And so when it comes to activity as well, it as much as possible should be things that we love to enjoy. The place that we can get into the effortlessness more and more and more is where we'll see substantial change. What I'm
But
talking about is becoming a new person.
let
Like
me
I wasn't
ask this
always in
though,
this
a
shape.
very specific question. Give me an example of balance in your life. So for someone that says, like, you know, because like you know, do you eat potato chips? Do you eat pizza? Do you eat, or are to look like Tom Pryor, you have to only eat, you know, raw vegetables and, you know, liver? Like, is there balance?
I'm not a big fan of liver. I have to say though, it is considered to be a superfood. I mean, I do eat pizza, and I can't actually eat potato chips because I can't actually eat white potatoes. I have a bit of a funny starch intolerance,
Okay,
so
ice cream.
there's like white
Ice
potatoes
cream.
and
Do you eat
pasta.
ice cream?
So like, hmm?
Okay. So I want the
Yeah.
world to hear this. Tom Pryor looks how he looks with eating ice cream and with eating pizza. So there is a such thing as balance. There is a such thing that if Tom Pryor eats ice cream,
Totally.
then maybe the next meal he's not going to have ice cream again, but he's going to have something maybe a little healthier than he would have had normally. Like, I think that's what people need to hear, that there
Totally.
is a way to live this way,
Yeah.
look this way, and have some balance. Like, you know,
And also just to be aware, like with the knowledge, and this is something that I feel very strongly about, and is that like
yeah,
we don't always look that way. And like people don't always look that way. You can start the morning being like, wow, I look really shredded because like I haven't eaten for the last 14 hours because you know I maybe ate quite early the previous day and haven't eaten. I don't generally intermittent fast. It doesn't suit me generally, but like for example that can happen. And then like you eat like I love like buckwheat. It's not really like a very known staple, but like I can't eat oats because they make me really lethargic. But I eat like buckwheat porridge, for example. And yeah, it's a pretty hefty carbohydrate. It's very complex carbohydrate, and it's actually known as like a pseudo grain. And it keeps you sustained for like hours and hours. It's like super healthy. It's consumed a lot in like Eastern Europe. It's like known as like a real staple there. Like in Russia and in the Eastern European countries, they get buckwheat everywhere, and I love it. That was one of the bonuses about shooting
yeah.
Firebird and getting to spend so much time there was I found this like incredible grain. And and yeah, so you know, like I said, some days are better than others, some months are better than others. Like maybe like now I'm not necessarily in the shape that I was like a month ago, and then at the beginning of the year, like I was maybe in like super good shape, and it just kind of goes like this because like our bodies are living organisms which are so, you know, we're we're so influenced by the world around us. And like I've just done a lot of air travel recently and been in different time zones, and it makes you kind of like crave sugar at weird times of day. And so sometimes I need to actually listen to my body, and this is what I encourage and teach people to do more and more, is actually like listen to your body, because your body is actually giving you feedback and signs to actually what it needs. But that only begins to come when we bring it into more coherence, because when we are rigging it full of like junk, then it just craves junk because it's efficient. But when we pull that away, then your body will begin to like actually go like, look, I actually really need some more of this. I really need some more of that. And you know, the discussion around like calories in versus calories out, for example, is being now proven more and more inaccurate in terms of like you can take somebody who's eating 3,000 calories of junk food and somebody who's eating 3,000 calories of whole foods, and that person eating the whole foods will drop weight. And like they're not equal at all. And so it's just like the way that the body knows how to deal with these things. The less inflammation, the less confusing messages and confusing foods that we're giving it, the greater coherence like we can
So let me
bring
ask you
into
this.
our
What are
bodies.
like 3 foods that Tom Pryor eats for to keep like a healthy body, healthy mind, all that? Like what are like 3 of your top foods?
One of the things I really love to do is I make, and actually, if people go away and actually do this, I'm going to be really impressed, and I want to hear if you ended up making them. But so I lived with I lived with a couple of friends when I was in the West End, and one morning I went into the kitchen, and a friend of mine was making banana pancakes, and she was like mashing up a banana, and she added an egg to it, and that was it. And I was just like, what the hell are you doing? And she was like, "I'm making banana pancakes." And I was just like, what? Like, this is not a recipe. And then she made them for me, and it was actually honestly like amazing. But I've ended up sort of like pimping that up and making it a lot better. And so a go-to breakfast for me in the morning is like one medium-sized banana. It's got to have a few brown
Yeah.
spots, but not too ripe and not too green. One egg, and then like it will be a not a full scoop, but it will be like a significant amount of like a good quality protein powder. I recommend a vegan protein powder, like pea protein. And you basically just like mix up into a pretty thick consistency, and then just like fry that with some coconut oil. You can do it with a couple bananas, depends on how hungry you are. But I sometimes would do like 2 bananas, 2 eggs, and a scoop of protein, pea protein powder, and then put on some like peanut butter or that in the morning, and that's like an incredible thing. Like you want to be aiming generally for around 40 grams of protein per meal. It's really like a kind of healthy way to kind of keep your blood sugar sustained, your hunger levels sustained like through the day. So that's one. Trying to think like what else I'm eating. At the moment, I'm kind of being a bit more like, I'm going to use this word, a bit more like flexitarian. So like I'm kind of wanting to actually bring more consuming more plants into my being. It just feels better right now for me to be consuming more plants. I'm not a vegan, wholly or strictly, but I generally believe that the quality of the food that we're eating is so fundamentally important. The quality is whether it's the vegetables or whether it's a meat source or whether it's a plant protein source, the quality of the food overall is just so fundamentally important. So let me think for a minute about what else I might make. I mean, when I was in the US recently, I actually came across
Oh wow,
bison meat,
yeah,
and I'd
that's
never eaten
very
bison in my
popular
life.
here.
And like grass-fed, really good quality bison that I like made into a burger. That was like super great as well. Like decent amount of like healthy fats, really amazing quality meat, and then just like making that, and that could be with like some sweet potato fries. So effectively, you're eating burger and chips, but you're effectively making it into like a healthy, well-sourced burger, which has come from grass-fed cattle, ideally. And then making some sweet potato fries, and we were doing it in my friend's air fryer. Now, I don't have an air fryer, but I'm completely convinced now that they're one of the best inventions ever,
Yeah.
because like we made like super good sweet potato fries, and they're not fried, like they're just crispy and lovely. And if you put in a little bit of coconut oil and then just whack them in the air
Now
fryer,
you've
they
brought
can be
up coconut
dreamy.
oil a couple
So
times
that'd be
now, so
another
I'm
one.
assuming that coconut oil is a big staple for you.
It's really important actually where we get the quality of our fats from again, like fat, um, overall like fat consumption, and particularly the oils that we cook our food in is really, really important. And so like the seed oils can generally be quite uh, not like, I don't want to say like I don't know enough about it scientifically, but generally I know that like they have a lower smoke point, and that's generally not good, and it basically raises omega 6 levels, and that's one of the basically the more dangerous omega 3 is healthy, and omega 6 can be like a little bit more
Well,
causing
and just
inflammation.
to bring it
So
down to
coconut
the
oil is super
ridiculous
good
for
for that.
some of the people here like me that don't understand necessarily what you've said, but I've been friends with you, so I understand. When you put heat to the oil changes. So like
Yeah.
olive oil, for instance, is actually really healthy for you as a raw oil. in
Yeah,
small amounts. But when you heat
totally.
olive oil, when you heat that, it
Yeah,
changes the way that olive oil is digested into the system, and it brings out. So that's what he was saying.
totally.
Sorry, I remember last
Yeah.
time you said
No,
that
no,
to me, I
no,
was like,
thanks for
what is
clarifying,
he
because
saying? I
sometimes I
don't
just go off on
understand. So
one.
now, but now I understand.
Yeah, so that's like super important. Another one that's really good actually for, so if we're talking about like frying, for example, coconut oil is super good for that. Ideally, like organic virgin coconut oil. Another one that's really good actually is ghee, and that's used a lot in Indian cooking. But it's pretty widely available now. But again, it's like basically a more concentrated version of butter, and it has a higher smoke point again. So those are really like the two best kind of like oils to cook with. Like rapeseed oil has been kind of like proven to be quite it can cause more inflammation in the body, so generally it's not so good to be consuming that. I have a real like love hate relationship with oat milk because I love oat milk in coffee, but like there's scientifically again there's something that's pretty jammy there, that like oat milk is considered to have a higher GI like glycemic
Oh
index
wow.
than sugar. So because of the way the oats are processed. So basically you add basically like a high GI to rapeseed oil in an oat milk drink. We're pretty much talking about something that's generally not that good for us, but that's one of those things where sometimes I'm like, all right, I'll just do one of those because I'm not consuming loads of it. And this is what I'm talking about, is balance. Like we need to give ourselves what we enjoy and like what we love, and that's important. And so when we get these, when we have these things, like I work with a client at the moment, he like absolutely loves um, having a biscuit in the evening. He's like, I'm sorry, I have a biscuit. And I'm like, no, enjoy it, because like it's in the plan. Like it's in, if I start saying you can't have biscuits, like as a little thing that you just like enjoy, like in your day, yeah, a cup of tea and a biscuit is something that he really loves. And so I'm like, well, let's keep it. I'm not gonna like start hamming on to you about actually like taking out those things that actually
But
are the
don't you
thing that
feel
you
like
look
also
forward to
like
in your
I
food.
will say this, that I of course I believe in balance, right? Like I'm the king of balance, and I'm also the king of no balance whatsoever. So but when I do allow my life, like, and not just with food, like let me be very clear about this. Balance is important in every part of your life, because the reality is I've known people that work out way too much and then have no social life because all they're doing is
Hmm.
working out. I know people that have eaten too much or have not eaten enough, right? Like, I know people that
Hmm.
love gaming and yet they'll sit there for hours upon, and you're like, wait, what? Balance is an important part of every part of your life. And
Totally.
I mean, I think you do that really well until you don't actually. Like, you travel and then you're like gone for like 7 years and then we don't know where the hell you are. But I'm kidding. But I think that balance is a very key part of this conversation for every part of our lives. Like, and
Mm.
and I see that in you very often. It's interesting because a lot of people might not know that you personally uh, coach people through health and wellness. And
Yeah,
I know that if anyone wants to be coached by you, they can reach out to you. Um,
for
and one
sure.
of the things that I think is really interesting in the way that you coach people is that you really look at their lives, right? You don't say, well, this is the best way to live and this is the only way. No, you look at their lives and you go, okay, how do we take what you're doing, how you're personally living, what can we take out, but what can we add, right? Like, you don't just take things out. You're not like, and that is out and this is out. And no, you make sure that when you take something out, you're putting something in. Because if
Yeah.
we start feeling like we're losing stuff, we're going to hold on to that stuff tight. We're going to go, no,
Hmm.
no, Tom, you're not taking that from me. But then when you're like, oh, but I get something back. Oh, okay. Oh, this is pretty easy. Okay, here we go. And that's the idea of balance. Let me ask you this, because I know a lot of people, when I was asking people about, by the way, I just have to say this. Some of you ask some of the most screwed up questions, but they were kind of funny to read. Tom and I really did have a laugh about some of the questions.
Yeah, there's some pretty cracking questions, I have to say. And as we're going, by the way, if anybody wants to ask some relevant
I mean,
questions,
some of the
please, then
questions I
go
was
for it.
like, seriously? But we won't ask those questions. But you know, in what one of the questions that came up time and time and time again was, how do you balance, and they use different words other than balance, but how do you balance being able to be social and go out and do all that with living a healthy lifestyle? Because people don't see how that's possible. They don't know that they can go out and have a beer or a drink. So what advice do you give those people?
I got like a few things around this. Like it's important to certainly if you're beginning to change like your lifestyle, um, different to how it is at the moment, you need to actually bring in people around you, if possible, who are also part of that tribe. What I've been kind of doing in the last sort of few months is kind of creating a tribe of people, like, and encouraging that more and more around me, of people who have similar goals to me in terms of like the way they like to eat and the environments they like to live in and the exercise that they like to do. But initially, I was kind of a bit more of
Yeah.
a sort of lone wolf doing that. And sort of so as you begin to adjust like your life into living in sort of more of this way, you will inevitably, some people will drop out and new people will come in. But it is super important to have the awareness like that change will come. But yeah, to kind of balance things, it's kind of like going, is it or is it not in my interest? So I was speaking, I'll give you an example. Like I was speaking with a client the other day, and he was going on a trip um, with his family, and he was just like, we're going to be in an Airbnb for a few days, and I'm like, I'm not going to be able to like work out for like 3 to 4 days. I'm really like stressing about it, and like I don't really know what to do. And I'm like going, how much your body is going to change in like 3 to 4 days when you go on holiday with your family, for example, is not going to fundamentally
Yeah.
change your body shape within those days. But if you are building a momentum and you're building like a lifestyle change that you're kind of worried you're going to fall off the kind of momentum of, and you go, okay, fine. We were speaking like if you want, like you can wake up super early and do a little mini workout like in the Airbnb because there's no gym nearby, and do that. But I just go, are you going to enjoy your day fully when you go out to Disneyland all day? And then you're going to be kind of maybe a bit knackered. I mean, you can tell me your body energy levels better than I can, but I just go like, if you wake up super early, like an hour and a half early, you do an hour workout at home, are you going to enjoy that day and spend the time with your family? Versus, can you basically train maybe like a little bit harder in the days leading up to, add another training day in the days leading up to, and then after that, you could end up enjoying those few days and then go like, that's enough, like that's okay, and then jump back to it afterwards. It's always about kind of like looking at the experience of going,
Well, and what
is
it
this worth
sounds
it?
like to me is that you're saying,
But
like, and
also,
what people don't realize, well, it's not that they don't realize, they just don't think about it. It's just planning. That's all it is. It's saying, okay, I know, for instance, for my birthday this year, I'm probably going to go to Mexico. And my plan is to go to
mhm,
Mexico and enjoy my time. Not think about working out, not think about food, just enjoy my time. So I know that before that, I'm going to I'm going to do I'm going to work out a little harder than I normally would. I'm going to try to get a little leaner than I normally would so that I can enjoy that time and not really think about it. But the other way to plan for a trip like
totally.
that would be to go, okay, let me go to the website of the hotel, see what their meals are, see what meals I can actually eat, in a healthier version, you know what I mean? Like, and just and
Totally.
know the things that I can and can't ask for. Like I know last time I went to Mexico, I would just make sure, hey, can you not cook this in butter? Can you not cook this in oil? And I still enjoyed my meal. I still enjoyed my time. But the reason I was able to ask those things is because I planned ahead, right? I planned a little bit ahead, and I said,
Totally.
this is how. So one of the things I'm hearing you say is plan. Like, just know, don't leave things to chance. Don't just show up to a resort or show up to a vacation without some sort of plan. Whether the plan is, I'm going to just eat whatever the hell I want to eat, so here's what I'm going to do prior, or whether the plan is, I actually want to eat still pretty healthy while I'm there and I still want to move my body a little bit. So go to the website and see what kind of activities they have. They might have kayaking, they might have surfing, and
Totally.
it's still keeping your body moving, but it's maybe not what you're used to. But you know what? It actually might change your body even for the better while you're having fun.
For sure. I mean, it also depends on like what activities like maybe you want to do that actually are fun. Like for example, like I actually really genuinely
No,
enjoy
you
working
don't,
out, and
Tom.
like
No
so when I
one
go somewhere
does. What
new,
is wrong with you?
yeah, I didn't think I would have been able to keep it up for like so many years if I didn't actually enjoy it. And that's the thing is like I love going to a new place and just like checking out their gym and like checking out like a pool, or like I love swimming in the sea, like and like when I was in Mexico, like I would just go and swim in the
Yeah.
sea like the whole time because the temperature was incredible. And so it's like what can I do which is also like in alignment with the environment, and like enjoy that. But I think that yeah, you're right, it's definitely about planning. And so if you're going, for example, and you have a protein goal, like take some protein with you as a kind of backup. Like I occasionally carry even I carry like my like amino acids, for example, with me because I have sourced a very great quality product from I'll do a little plug here because I actually really love his stuff. Matt Lovell, who basically founded Amino Man, he does like really incredible amino acid complexes and
Cool.
like a whole lot of other really incredible products. And he really has taken the time and consideration over many years to really perfect some really excellent products. And I'm so dedicated to putting pure stuff in my body that I will travel with it. Because like I was literally even in the US with it, and I was like, I ran out, and I was like, oh my God, like what am I gonna do? Like because I care. Like there's so many products out there which just aren't very mindfully created, and it's just maximizing profit and minimizing quality. That I'll go like, okay, that's one thing that I'm gonna have to like allow a little bit of extra
Well, and
luggage in my
again,
suitcase
like
for.
I think, one of the things I think that impresses me about you is like, again, you are, and I think you do this with your clients, and that's why I think, most people should hire you, is that you traveled how long in the United States for, and, you came home with an extra two abs, like, but you still had an amazing experience and an amazing journey.
Yeah, that's the thing is kind of keeping it up is sort of like some people say, like they'll go to, a retreat or they'll go to a holiday and they kind of like
Yeah.
say they kind of fell off their kind of momentum. And like for me it's about kind of like keeping up enough momentum that it's not like because the trouble is when we slide so far down a scale of change, we believe that actually trying to get back to that place is going to be so difficult. Then we kind of can get to the point of giving up a bit. And again, like I don't mind like sharing that like it certainly was challenging. Like sometimes I just go like, oh, I'm not going to do that, but I'm going to go and take care of my body instead. But honestly, like I'd rather like be able to kind of like keep up an exercise regime and keep up like a healthy lifestyle so I can continue to enjoy like my body and my health more than anything else, to like allow me to thrive as much as I can in my
Well, and
experience
let's
like here on earth. I posted a little thing the other day just said like the reason why I don't eat junk food is because if I don't take care of my body I won't have anywhere to
yeah.
live. And I kind of love that and I do eat junk food every so often because like that's part of the human joy and experience and the condition. But the funny thing is once you cut it out, you eat it and you're like, ugh, like the body is actually just
But
like
I also
really
have to
like
say,
not happy
I
about
feel
it.
like I have to say this. I joke about you having 427 abs. I joke about, the physical look of the body. And I think a lot of times because of kind of the world I'm in and whatever, and of perfection and trying to like, this conversation is not about looking your best. It's about feeling your best, because when
Mm,
you feel your best and
totally.
when you're at your best, that's all that really matters. Like, I promise you that, like,
Yeah.
because obviously I don't have the perfect body, but I will tell you that being healthier and going from a size 46 waist to going to a size 26 waist, like, it, you
Wow.
feel better. And when you feel better, you act better. And when you act better, you live better. And when you live better, you do better. So it's like, I do joke, and I want everyone to know this. It is a joke. I am joking about you having 426 abs. But at the same time, yes, is that a result? Is that a result like that you look better? Yes. There's no way that you're not going to look better in your own skin, right? And that's not saying that someone who is big can be not sexy, because they are. They're beautiful. Everyone is
For sure.
beautiful
Yeah.
in whatever body they're in. I would only tell someone to lose weight if you're unhealthy at a bigger weight. If you're unhealthy at a smaller weight, I would tell you to gain weight. Like, so, I, I feel like I've been joking about that a little bit too much, and I want people to hear, like, whatever body you're in, you're beautiful. But when you feel better,
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Also, I've seen people with what we would aesthetically call the most incredible, like, picture perfect, whatever, like, bodies. Um,
yeah,
and they're not happy at all. It's a bit like becoming a millionaire and then being like, well, now I'm just really
yeah,
afraid of how I'm going to lose it all. It's like the same thing that actually, like, we so often chase these experiences or these whatever it might be, like these kind of particular goals, and then when we actually
yeah,
get there, we can't even see it. Like the thing that was like so fascinating for me actually, like as part of my experience even on Firebird, was that when I was in the peak of my shape during like the filming of that, even then it wasn't necessarily good enough. It wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough. And like that's the thing that I'm really passionate about, is also helping people, and also invariably helping myself more to enjoy being in our bodies no matter what our experience is of them. Because again, we can end up like kind of almost disassociating from it and just going like, again, I'll be happy when. And I certainly see at times like myself doing this and just going like, oh, like, okay, this is not quite where I was. And that is where the suffering comes in, because the mind starts grasping for something that it knew before, it was before. And we are ever changing, ever morphing, ever again, like within our environments, and like life happens and we meet somebody and we're like, I'm not going to go to the gym 3 times this week because this person I want to spend more time with more than going to the gym. Whereas like if that person doesn't necessarily come into our life, you're like, actually, what's more loving to me right now? What's kind of like the best thing for sort of like taking
yeah.
care of
It's
myself better?
interesting because I think that the truth is, we don't know if we do all the work in the world. We don't know, as what our bodies are really going to look like. So, like, even if I did all the work that you do, my body will probably never look like your body, because we have different bodies. So you're basing your happiness on something that you really don't freaking know what it's going to look like. So if you can base it on things that things you can control, which is yourself. If you can base your joy and your health
Totally.
based on yourself, then you're always going to be happy. If I'm basing that, okay, I'm going to work my butt off, I'm going to eat exactly what Tom eats, I'm going to say the things and listen to the things, and even if I hate them, even if I hate your music, I'm still going to listen to your music, because it's your music that makes me, and then a year down the road, I'm like, wait, I don't have the same
Yeah,
abs. Well, you're a different person. Like, it's not about the abs, it's about being happy in the journey and feeling good. Because
totally.
when you feel good, it's freaking amazing. Like, I gotta tell you. I mean, I didn't realize how much I hated how I felt when I was so overweight. My joints hurt, everything hurt. And do I still have pains and do I still have things? Yes. Yes, I do. But I'm very proud of myself. And being proud of myself allows me to feel
For
good
sure.
about myself.
Totally. I mean, that's really what the whole journey ends up being about. Like when I was doing like when I was doing like all the training in addition to the filming of Firebird, for example, we did these like crazy long days, and you know, it was like 12-hour shooting day plus 1 hour which is for lunch, plus then like transportation to and from the set, and then it's time to go and exercise. And I was doing, you know, in my perspective, like almost like superhuman hours. I
Yeah.
was like, how am I doing this? The thing that actually I'm probably the most proud of actually out of that was not necessarily the body or whatever else, but it was actually going, I'm so proud of actually the output that I actually
Yeah.
managed to create. I was actually so proud of like becoming this kind of superhuman like level of operation. It's not necessarily sustainable for like, you know, more than 3 months as we were shooting. Like maybe keep it up for a bit longer, but like because the body then must naturally come into rest, like because we must really embrace like both sides of these archetypes of being like the kind of masculine archetype of being very like let's go, let's get it, like and go for the goal, and then the other side of it, this sort of female masculine, this feminine archetype. And I'm not talking about men and women, I'm just talking about energetic qualities. Really we kind of like embrace the side of ourselves where we can be soft and like gentle with ourselves and go like, I hear you, body, like we've worked out super hard for the last 2 days. Today, like I'm gonna be kind and we're gonna like have a bath, or just
Yeah.
not even do that, like and actually just like rest and like be in bed for a little bit longer. And that's so important, and it's so underrated, this gentle side of ourselves and this kindness that we can show ourselves, because it's really in that place that we begin to like grow. It's sort of like a bit like the irony being that if we don't get enough sleep when we're training very hard, the body won't change, because actually all the fundamental changes actually happen when we're asleep. Yes, we go and rip the muscles, the new muscles in the gym, but if we don't go and sleep afterwards, then they won't be able to regenerate. They won't be able to rebuild. And so that's as fundamental. And again, something that I'm coaching people a lot in is to kind of go, yes, we're going to do goals, but we're also going to adhere to being kind to ourselves, and and being gentle with ourselves, and listing things like that we're proud of, or listing like the things that actually the achievements that we've made, and acknowledging like how far we have come, and kind of like going into that internal and kind
Yeah.
self and that
Yeah.
safe
So
place.
one last question, because it's we're almost to an hour here, so I don't want to bore people too much. I want them to want more. So, and we will do more of these, obviously. But I think one of the things that the number one question that was asked the most about you specifically, and your mental wellness and all of that, is where does so yes, we've talked about balance. We've talked about happiness being your choice, and that you have to make that your choice. But when you are not in that headspace and you're like, I just don't want to do this, and I just don't feel, and I don't, and you're just, and you're noticing that it's happening more and more and more. When Tom Pryor is not in that headspace to be as healthy and as great as possible, what is something that you do that helps you get back into that headspace?
Yeah, that's a super good question, because like again, it happens quite regularly when we kind of do jump off, like and do also do fall off, or life happens. There's a few different things I have in like the toolbox for that, and so often we can reach for the tools, and that can be like meditation, that can be a cold shower, it can be going for a walk. But actually, you know what? Sometimes the most powerful thing is to actually take in whatever that thought is, because sometimes it's just like, meh, you're not good enough, or whatever it is, like whatever the neurosis is, because they're nearly always mind created. Sometimes the most effective thing we can do is actually listen to that, and actually when this perpetual noise in the mind keeps on going at us, we actually just go like, okay, I'm just gonna listen to what this is telling me. And it's actually through that we can actually begin to melt it, because all these parts of ourselves, all these feelings, all these thoughts are feedback, they're messages for us to be even greater aware. And so when we can actually get to that point where we actually listen to those messages and just go like, oh wow, so often often they will just like cease. And so often when we just surrender to, okay, I'm listening, like I'm here in my neuroticism and in like my self-judgment,
Yeah,
and I just
I
go
love
like, I hear
that.
you, I
It's funny that you say that
see you.
because I have a post-it over my mirror that says, "How would you talk to yourself if yourself was someone else?" And there's been many times where I
Totally.
look in the mirror and I'm like, ugly, fat, too skinny, too wrinkly, too this, too that. And let me tell you, being in a world where, I own a magazine and it's all pretty people and, like I compare myself a lot. So by the way, do not compare yourself.
For
Only compare
sure.
yourself to an older version of yourself. Like, am I better today than I was yesterday? That's the only comparison. What is the word? You know what I mean. Comparing that you should be doing. But the other thing is,
Hmm.
how would you talk to yourself at that moment, having those thoughts, if you were talking to your mother, right? If you looked in the mirror and it was your mom and she was like, I'm ugly and I'm fat and I'm this, you'd be like, no, you're beautiful. And here's why you're beautiful. And here's why you're worthy. And here's why. So talk to yourself as though you would talk to someone else. Because I can't tell you how often I'll hear someone talk about themselves. And I'm like, fuck you. Don't you ever talk about someone I love that way. And they're like, wait, but I was talking about
For
myself. I'm
sure.
like, I don't care. You're someone I love, and don't talk about someone I love in that way. So I think that's a huge thing as well, is absorb that thought that you're thinking and then give yourself advice and look in the mirror and talk to yourself as though you were someone else. So
For
listen,
sure.
if anyone wants more advice from Tom, wants to hire Tom, wants to, see if they are possibly can get 432 abs like Tom. Okay. Reach out to him. Maybe there should be like a key word that they put in their DM. So like change your life. Write that. And we're going to do more of these. So if there's questions that you have, um, feel free to reach out to both of us, and feel free to,
Sure.
but Tom, I'm going to take a second. This is going to be really awkward. Are you ready? Tom hates me right now. He hates me right now.
Uh-oh.
I'm going to just take a second to tell you why I think you're such a great person, so that maybe you
I'm gonna
just
try
absorb
and
it.
allow
Just
this
absorb it.
in.
I think one of my favorite things about you is that you're constantly thinking about other people in a healthy and beautiful way. I love that about you. I love that every time we talk, you're like, how can what I say help someone, facilitate someone into a better life? Like, I have not heard you talk badly
Mm.
about anyone. Even in the closed doors of our conversations, you don't. Like, you are all about putting positive energy out into the world, and I love that about you. I love that you don't see yourself as anything else other than a human wanting to make the best life you possibly can and bring other people along with you on that journey. I think one thing that people don't get to see
Oh.
is the just I don't know how to put this other than like oh no, here's the word, humility. You've got an amazing amount of humility. And humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. So you're not one of those people that are like, oh,
Oh,
I'm terrible.
yeah.
Oh, sure, I have 432 abs, but I should have 434. No, you're not that person. But you think of yourself less, which allows you to be a truly humble person. I'm grateful. I'm grateful to have you in my life. I'm
Well,
grateful to
thank
have
you.
these things. And I mean, we're in two different countries, two different worlds, and we're hopefully some of you got something from this, and we will do more of these. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much
Yeah,
for your
even
questions,
the questions that made
everybody,
us
and
laugh. Let me tell you.
for Mark. Yeah. Yeah. Even a little bit of entertainment. But if it's of interest, feel free to reach out. I am still absolutely working through things with my film career. I love that to pieces. I love that world. I'm still writing projects, but like it is just joy to be able to help other people grow. And thank you so much for
Well,
acknowledging that as well, Mark.
I
I really appreciate
adore
that.
you. I'm so grateful that we're in each other's lives, and we're gonna do more of these. So I hope everyone enjoyed.
Yeah.
We'll
Have a
talk to y'all
beautiful
soon.
Sunday, everybody.
Bye.
Take care.